I know what it is. It's just Texas's training wheel schedule showing up for a second straight season in the SEC. Welcome back to Hall of Fame College Football's Sooner Magic podcast. I'm your host, Jason Watkins, and if you love college football, particularly Oklahoma Sooner football, you're definitely in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of Hall of Fame college football. Well, the SEC decided to change course on Wednesday. And it's kind of a weird thing the way that they did it too, because I think everybody knew, and I'm pretty sure everybody knew that they were going to stick with 8 games heading into 2025, so that the first 2 years, everybody in the SEC will have gotten a crack at both Oklahoma and Texas. They reversed at least part of it on Wednesday, and let's take a look at what they're talking. Now, as you can see, the SEC officially sticking with an 8-game schedule for 2025 per a source. This is, of course, coming from The Athletic. It's funny that that's the way the headline is, but you find out real quick what's going on. Now, again, as I said, this was already intended. They were going to stick with an 8-game schedule for the first 2 years. Then they were going to move to the other one. But what was going to happen was everybody was going to swap out getting to play Oklahoma and Texas, the new members of the league in 2024. So you go from 2024 to 2025. So, for instance, Oklahoma this year playing Alabama. Next year, they would be playing Georgia, not Alabama. Vice versa for Texas. We'll get into the schedules and what they were in a minute. But as you can see, SEC sticking with an 8-game schedule for 2025 season, but with each team playing the same opponents as they did in 2024, with locations, of course, being flipped. The conference announced on Wednesday. As it says here, for instance, Georgia's going to host Alabama, whether they're on the road at Bama this year. Ole Miss and Kentucky. Georgia will host Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, and Kentucky, the 4 away games that it has in 2024. The format also means that Texas will host A&M, and Oklahoma will travel to Tennessee, while Ole Miss will go to Oklahoma. For the reason why, which doesn't really tell me why, we continue to monitor changes across college sports as they relate to the future scheduling. Continuing with our current format for the 2025 season provides additional time to understand the impact of the changes happening around us as we determine an appropriate long-term plan for SEC football scheduling. Now, if you'll remember, the SEC, you had mainly Nick Saban's cronies that decided that they didn't want to go to a 9-game schedule unless ESPN was going to pay them for it. Also, they were a little bit concerned about how many places they were going to get in the playoff or in the in the playoff, pretty much when it went to 12 this season. Now, it says that approach is another sign that the conference still has an eye on expanding to a 9-game schedule, which would have your 3-6-6 model. You have 3 permanent opponents, 6 1 year, 6 of the rest of them 1 year, 6 the year after that. Obviously, the additions of Oklahoma and Texas are what spurned all that. But here's the deal. In any way that you look at it, this is what the real deal is right here. There is overall uncertainty about what the college landscape will look like, whether that's further realignment or anything else. Clemson joining Florida State in suing the ACC to get out of the grant of rights is yet another wrinkle. Therefore, going with a temporary schedule for 2025 is the SEC's way of continuing to maintain flexibility, and it did not want its annual spring meetings in Destin in late May to again be dominated by the schedule discussion. It wouldn't have been, because everybody knew. Why would it have dominated discussions in Destin at the SEC meetings? Everybody already knew that in 2025 it would remain an 8-game schedule, the same as it is in 2024, and the other opponents, the other 6 opponents that you didn't play in 2024 from the SEC, you would play them. So, for instance, where Georgia's playing Texas this year, Georgia would be playing Oklahoma next year. Everybody who played Texas in 2024 would be playing OU the next year. So it would have basically reversed the schedules, which, as you'll see, Texas had an absolute training wheel, junior varsity, however you want to put it, schedule. And for whatever reason, they get it again. So as you can see here, they updated the schedule and announced it for 2025 here. And it essentially just flips the opponents from the year before, because as you saw this season coming up, 2024, Texas is hosting games against the Florida Gators, the Georgia Bulldogs, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. They would have had road games. They have road games coming up in 2024 against Arkansas. The Red River game, of course, in Dallas against Oklahoma. They are considered the road team in 2024. Texas A&M is going to be at A&M this year. So next year they will play in Austin against the Aggies, and then you've got Vanderbilt at home next season as well. But as you see, Oklahoma now, where OU has, and everybody already kind of pretty much has talked about the fact that OU did not get any love from the SEC for their first season in the league. They've got road games, of course, at Auburn, at LSU, at Ole Miss, and at Missouri in 2024. Those games, of course, will flip to next season, but we're still talking about probably a quite improved Auburn squad with Hugh Freeze. LSU, it's LSU. Then you've got Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, and then Drink and Mizzou. We'll see what they're about. But that means next season they will go on the road. They were hosting games against Alabama, South Carolina, and Tennessee in 2024, but will now, of course, be on the road in 2025 as well, at Tuscaloosa, in Columbia, South Carolina, at Knoxville, at the 100,000 plus seat stadium at Tennessee for a second game against Josh Heupel and the Vols. And then, of course, again, the Red River is in Dallas, but, it's considered an away game for the Sooners. Look, there's other teams from the SEC would probably be hoping for a little bit of breathing room in 2025. But, look at Florida. They always play Georgia. That wouldn't change. But that means that they got to play Texas again. They get Mississippi State, but they play Tennessee as always. They also get LSU, Ole Miss, and A&M, along with Kentucky on the road in 2025. Florida probably has the toughest schedule in college football history this year when you add in their non-conference opponents as well. Alabama, it did Alabama no favors either for being what we thought was the darling of the SEC. They will host Oklahoma and LSU. They also have Tennessee as normal. Georgia, they will go on the road to play them. Missouri on the road, and Auburn on the road. Of course, they're not going to take away the Iron Bowl, but, it's a tough schedule for Kalen DeBoer in his second season. Georgia's not quite as tough, but they, have to play Bama again for a second straight year. Will host Texas, and then they've got Ole Miss, of course. Then, of course, the world's largest cocktail party with Florida is in Jacksonville as well. their road games against Vandy, Auburn, South Carolina. It obviously theirs isn't quite as tough, but you look at Ole Miss, LSU, not easy schedules unless you are Texas. Yeah, Texas continues to get just aside from Georgia and Oklahoma, and possibly A&M, with that being a rivalry game, you can, and maybe they'll be a little better with Mike Elko than they were with Jimbo. But you got to look at, when you start looking at the 2023 schedule and the 2023 combined record for Texas's opponents, which was supposed to just be in 2024, but now in 2025 as well. Overall, they were 53-48 combined, with, of course, 23 of those 53 wins coming from Georgia and Oklahoma. Okay. 31-38 in conference play. Georgia, of course, 13-1, 8-0 in conference. Oklahoma, playing in the Big 12, was 10-3, 7-2. There's only two other schools that finished with a winning record in 2023. Of course, A&M at 7-6. They were 4-4 in the conference. Kentucky was also 7-6. They went 3-5 in the SEC. But they play Florida, who was 5-7. 4-8 Arkansas, that was 1-7 in the SEC. And then you've got Mississippi State at 5-7, 1-7 in the SEC. And then Vanderbilt, 2-10 overall, 0-8 in the league. Look, overall, they had a +5 over 500 record. There were 8 games below 500 overall in the conference. If you take away, though, Georgia and Oklahoma from their conference opponents, they are combined 30-44 in conference play from last year. That's 14 games below 500. This is in comparison, of course, to Oklahoma, who, again, had no favors done for it coming into their new conference. They play Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, Mizzou, LSU, Tennessee, Auburn, and South Carolina. The Ole Miss game, Missouri game, LSU game are all on the road. We're talking about Ole Miss, Mizzou. Both of those schools went 11-2 on the season, 6-2 in the conference. Tennessee, another road game. They almost never lose in Death Valley. They were 10-3 a year ago, 6-2 in the conference. You play host to 12-2 Alabama and their new coach, Kalen DeBoer, who they were 8-0, won the conference championship, of course, over Georgia. And then, you also go on the road to an Auburn team that everybody wants to tell you how hard it is to win at Jordan-Hare Stadium. They may be a little bit better, but, road game there, road game at LSU, road game at Ole Miss, who is we're talking dark horse, or, expect a lot of expectations for Ole Miss and Missouri to make the college football playoff, along with LSU. There's a dark horse chance for Tennessee to get in, a lot of people think. LSU, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Auburn, one of the toughest places to play on the road if you ask an SEC fan, and those are all road games. Overall, Oklahoma's opponents for now 24 and 25 were 45 games over 500 overall. They were 16 games over 500 in the conference. To remind you, Oklahoma's opponents, 45 games over 500. Texas's 5 games overall over 500. In the conference, Oklahoma's 16 games over 500. Their conference opponents for Texas, 8 games combined below 500. That's a 24-game swing. And again, if you take away the Georgia and Oklahoma, then they were 30-44, which is 14 games below 500 in conference play. You're going to have to make me understand what was the point of changing this around. because we all knew that this was what it was going to be. What does keeping the same opponents for another year have to do with bowl matchups and what's going to happen in the college football playoff moving forward? Realignment. What the hell does that have to do with it? Why would you keep the same opponents? You're going to have to make me understand this. The only thing it looks like to me is you're just looking for the SEC is looking for a way to prop up, and ESPN are looking for a way to prop up Texas even more than they already did. It was completely unbalanced already for 2024, and it remains that way for 2025. It's just unbelievable. Not a cool way to do it. Guys, let me know what you think about that. I'm unhappy with it. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm glad that Oklahoma gets to continue playing Texas because I know they're going to beat Texas more times than they don't. But for Texas, who hasn't done anything for 15 years, and they finally win a Big 12 championship on the way out, 15 years after their last one, get to the college football playoff, choke that one away. There's no Georgia in the field. They gag it away to a Washington team that got steamrolled by Michigan. And this is after they beat Alabama earlier in the season. Now they get the training wheels schedule for 2 years in a row as they enter the SEC. What is the deal here? Why? What was the point in changing this over? You're going to have to make me understand that, because I don't get why you changed your mind all of a sudden, and nothing that was said in that release makes any sense. You were going to play half the league one year, half the league the next. And really, I mean, you look at Mizzou, same thing. They've got a paper soft schedule. There's a couple of these schools that got paper soft schedules. Why are we propping up Missouri and Texas and not Georgia and not Alabama and not Oklahoma? Even one of the years? Make it make sense. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Again, I don't understand what it is, but I want to know what you guys' opinion is on it. Did Oklahoma get screwed? Are you okay with it? Let me know in the comments. We'll see you guys on the next one.